In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog.
A sea of fog surrounds Lordran, the nebulous setting of 2011's From Software masterpiece, Dark Souls. It's a strange land whose very fabric of time wavers, and one that immediately evokes curiosity and danger upon entering. One of Dark Souls' starting classes, the Wanderer, could be a reference to Caspar David Friedrich's Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog. In the painting, the subject gazes out from atop a cliff above a roiling expanse. But even at the summit, the world remains distant and unknowable. Dark Souls even pays tribute to the painting, moments before the player is snatched away and flown to Lordran proper. Dark Souls thrives on that same ambiguity to create a sublime experience, crafting a world that feels vast and daunting, eternal and beyond comprehension. But how exactly did From Software create this mysterious world? And how did the developers create levels and encounters that are enchantingly memorable and brutally punishing without being considered unfair? We're going to take a deep dive into the design of Dark Souls' Undead Burg and look at how FromSoft's designers created something wholly unique, using tropes like difficulty, repetition, subtlety, and accumulation of knowledge to craft a level that laid the foundation for an entirely new genre. This is Art of the Level. Dark Souls has forged a reputation for being a difficult game, and when we say Dark Souls is hard, it's a vague shorthand that will mean different things to different people. For some players, Dark Souls is difficult because it's an action game that often demands very precise timing. Successfully parrying an enemy's attack or dodge rolling through a boss's lunge is tricky to pull off. But for others, it's difficult because the penalty for failure can feel harsh. Parry too early or dodge roll too late, and you can quickly find yourself dead and whisked back to your last bonfire with all of your hard-fought progress eradicated. For what is essentially the opening level of the game, the Undead Burg can be punishingly difficult for first-time players. This level can be broken down into 5 discrete encounters, plus a few extra side areas. From one encounter to the next, you're always fighting the same hollow soldier enemies, but their numbers increase, their arrangements change, and the weapons they wield pose new problems. One early encounter has 3 hollows attack at once, while a 4th hollow lies waiting in a doorway to ambush. A later encounter still has the player facing off against 4 hollows, but this time, instead of being hidden, the 4th hollow is continuously peppering the player with bolts from a crossbow. Even though the combat challenges continue to escalate, the goal remains the same: survive by learning to juggle threats and adapt on the fly. Even though progression through the Undead Burg is mostly linear, the level doesn't serve up a smooth difficulty curve. In fact, its largest difficulty spike occurs in a short side passage before you even reach the level's boss. This guy, right here. Armoured from head to toe and holding an impressive shield and a huge sword, he's unlike any enemy you've seen so far. His back is turned, and he won't aggro until you get much closer, so FromSoft's designers are allowing you plenty of time to assess this new situation before venturing further, but we'll return to him in a bit. We also say Dark Souls is difficult because when you die, you have to do it all over again. You're sent back to the last bonfire you rested at, and all the enemies respawn, even the ones you just killed. And worse, you lose all your souls. All that hard-earned currency that you fought like hell to level up your stats. Well, it's all gone, unless you fight your way back to it through the very area you just died in. One of the biggest reasons we say Dark Souls is difficult is because you can spend hours trying to beat one area and feel like you haven't made any progress at all. Intentionally cryptic by design, Dark Souls ditches the modern trend of over-explaining everything and instead leads the player towards solutions before they've even realised there's a problem to solve. From the Northern Undead Asylum through Undead Burg, Blighttown, Anor Londo and beyond, the world of Dark Souls is trapped in time. Hollow soldiers and Black Knights are forever standing vigil to a dead land, waiting eternally for the player to arrive over and over again. Kill them once and they'll reappear indifferent to their demise, die at their hands, and you'll face them again soon enough. Dark Souls is built around this idea of repetition. From the basic cycle of resting at a bonfire and resetting the playing field, restoring your health and Estus flask while repopulating the area once more, to the bigger picture concept of linking the fire to restart the age of fire, or ultimately letting the flame die out, Dark Souls is preoccupied with the perpetual struggle of repeated actions. And it's this obsession with repetition that is fundamental to understanding it the way it wants you to understand it. Fighting the same group of enemies again and again encompasses a standardized curriculum that enables From Software's designers to teach players the lessons they need to learn in order to progress. Here, they want you to learn how to deal with passive enemies that hang back behind their shield. Later, they want you to apply what you've just learned to now handle a slightly larger group of passive shield-bearing enemies. Only you've got much less room to maneuver, and maybe they're not so passive this time around. By repeating the same parts of the level over and over, you come to recognise the manner in which enemy behaviour also repeats. You gradually learn the patterns of enemy attacks and their tells, right down to observing the way the first couple of frames of an animation let you predict what they're about to do. Pretty soon, you can spot whether they're going to swing once or deliver a full combo attack just from the way they first draw back their weapon. You're honing your skills through repetition and building your confidence for the challenges ahead. Not only does repetition train the player to improvise combat tactics based on countless different encounters, it also makes them increasingly familiar with all of the level's treacherous alleys, corners, and bridges. That constant repetition, death after death, helps players find their way through the Undead Burg. As with all things Dark Souls, navigation is also something that needs to be solved through repetition. FromSoft doesn't provide the player with a map or explicit directions. Instead, it's on the player to notice small cues in the layout design to find their way through. Subtlety is also important in Dark Souls. Any heavy-handedness in the way it attempts to help players gain an understanding would become overbearing and ultimately irritating. Players are expected to die often and replay areas frequently, picking up slight visual cues they may have missed before, like learning to speak a language one word at a time. Early in the Undead Burg, for example, this shimmering fog gate has likely captured your interest, but it's not the only source of light competing for your attention. Spot this torch, and you'll then see an enemy below, and a bit further along, the distinctive glow of an item. The use of light in this way is subtle but deliberate, even if it's something you may not notice the first time you pass through this area. This is a trick that FromSoft often pulls, giving observant players an alternate and perhaps more advantageous route. After taking the side route, there's a good chance you'll miss this recessed doorway, as the tight corridor means the camera is unlikely to afford a clear view, and besides, you're probably entirely concerned with the hollows scaling the railing ahead of you. But FromSoft's occasionally generous designers give you a second chance, as from here you can see an item on the corpse hanging out a window, a clue that you've missed something and there is indeed a way inside. Again, there's that subtlety at play. FromSoft gradually feeds you little bits of information that help you better understand Dark Souls' challenges as you move throughout its world. For what is barely more than a short side loop off of the main part of the level, there is so much jammed into this little alleyway, if you know where to look. From the top of the ladder, you can look down and into Lower Undead Burg, a later area that you can't access, at least without the Master Key, until you've defeated the Taurus Demon and explored the Undead Parish. Again, notice the torches lining this street, highlighting the route that you'll take through this area later on. You can even see straight down into the garden that hosts the Capra Demon boss fight. It's empty right now, you can't see the demon itself, nor his pesky dogs, nor even the tree that grows next to the stairs, but still it's a terrific example of how all the areas interlock and how the pieces fit together. It feels like a coherent, real space that can be understood if you just explore enough of it. That connected sense of place is with you even before you actually arrive in the Undead Burg. The first glimpse you have of the area is a flyover, with you clutched in the claws of a giant bird. You probably won't realise it the first time you see it, but this cinematic literally shows where you should go next. It charts in reverse the route from Firelink Shrine up through the aqueduct, into the Undead Burg, across the bridge into the Undead Parish, and all the way to the first bell tower and guardian gargoyles. Though of course, when you land it turns you around, pointing you in the opposite direction. Classic FromSoft. Speaking of gradually feeding information to the player, remember this guy? He looks pretty imposing in that suit of armour, but he's just standing there with his back turned to you, seemingly inviting you to perform a sneak attack. The sword does look dangerous, but he's standing in a nondescript tunnel when you'd expect a boss character to be stood atop some tall tower or inside a grand throne room, not an out-of-the-way hallway. But there's an item further down the tunnel behind him, almost like he's guarding it, and by now you know that an item worth guarding is an item worth having. So you attack him, and you almost certainly die very quickly. The Black Knight, as it turns out, is tough. Or so it seems. The Black Knight hits really, really hard, but you can block his attack with a shield. The corridor you meet him in is cramped, and the camera gets in very tight, making it awkward to read his moves, especially as he looms over you and seemingly fills the entire screen. Lure him out into a more spacious environment, and he becomes slightly less intimidating. With more room to breathe, his attacks now seem slow and predictable, and suddenly very easy to parry, a move you've worked hard at perfecting, over and over again. The knowledge you've gained to kill the Black Knight, earned through undoubtedly many deaths and missteps, and aided by the careful but sparingly laid clues left by FromSoft's designers, lies at the heart of Dark Souls and the Undead Burg. Through a cycle of repetition, through areas subtly shaded with hints, Dark Souls provides its players with everything they need to overcome its challenges. It's all there, and as you progress, you will also learn how to look for it. The PC release of Dark Souls was labelled the Prepare to Die edition, a phrase that is often mistaken as a kind of boast about the game's difficulty, as if FromSoft is promising that it's going to punish you. But there are subtle layers of meaning to that phrase. Prepare to Die implies that death is inevitable, you just can't escape it, so if you're going to die, you should be diligent about it. Have a plan, make arrangements for your demise. To prepare to die means to engage in a ritual, steeling yourself for what lies ahead in much the same way you'll come to kneel at a bonfire to rest and reinforce your equipment. Prepare to Die isn't just a taunt, it's also comforting, even reassuring. It's FromSoft's way of letting you know that you have what you need to move on, survive, become stronger, smarter and deadlier, and then, yes, probably die again. But that's what makes this so brilliant. And that was the art of the Undead Burg, one of the most iconic levels in video game history. What's your favourite Dark Souls area? What's the one you've had the most trouble with but still love, even if it killed you 100 times? Let us know in the comments, and for more art of the level, stick with IGN.